Now, we've got a very long day of hearings today, so I do apologise, but we're going to have to be pretty strict on time frames. I'm going to try and share the questions around, so if people, have asked questions, then I'm going to try and prefer other councillors, because, and if people who are speaking do leave some time for questions, we're going to have to stick pretty much to the 10 minutes for organisations and the 5 minutes for individuals. So on that note, could I call forward Spokes Canterbury Cyclists Association?
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm Dirk submissions convener for Spokes Canterbury. Thank you for doing your best to represent Christchurch and for taking the time to let people be heard. When all is said and done, I hope you will have found ways to make most of us feel like our participation was both meaningful and productive. Thank you for the major cycle routes funding. If comments to the press article on the University of Canterbury academics' failed assault on the financial analysis of the cycle routes is any indication, you have a great deal of support. You also face a dilemma. Everyone wants something and there is not enough money. Central government has jumped the queue with the anchor projects, put on the pressure by insisting on not accounting for the insurance proceeds, cut rebuild funding, and insisted on a balanced budget. Not that they have managed one themselves in 8 years. The ratepayers don't want asset sales nor unaffordable rates increases. Living within our means is politically popular, in word only. When it comes to taking steps to do so, there are few generally agreed upon quick fixes. Cycle infrastructure is one, and it appears that many in the public think it worthwhile. I can present examples from around the world of cities which have found that funding cycling has made people happy while reducing congestion and the need for expensive roading projects. The draft LPT even acknowledges, and I quote, "Increasing capacity to accommodate increased traffic volumes is not desirable because it is expensive, resource intensive, and encourages further traffic growth, creating more capacity problems in the long term and undermining sustainability options." End quote. The only thing left out is the clear connection that more roading means more rates increases. I think you have a pretty good idea of what Spokes would like from this LTP already. I will briefly list some high points and then leave it to you to ask questions. For the major cycle routes to meet expectations, they will need excellent connecting infrastructure. Quiet streets, less on-street parking, alleyway connections can all be inexpensive ways to achieve a complete network. Integrating them into the public transport system is also important. Cycle parking at bus stops can allow more people to utilize the bus network. That too needs to be in this LTP. Reducing congestion by allowing people to safely walk, cycle, bus also addresses central government's obsession with road-based freight. Travel times reduced not by building hugely expensive new roads, but by better utilizing what is already there. So what are our suggested changes? To best develop the benefits of active and public transport, the draft plan's infrastructure priorities need some serious reworking. We do need to rebuild much of what we had while including active transport infrastructure as we do. Why build a 20th century transport system for the 21st century? With much of the transport spend already going to maintaining the status quo, building ever more limits our options. As prioritized, there will be little to fund active and public transport. The project scores are a way of achieving better infrastructure priorities. When they prioritize affordability in both the short and long term, safety, long-term congestion reduction, community outcomes, resilience, economic contribution and alternatives, the freeing up of dollars for the local economy, social equity, public health impacts, a cleaner environment. And we need to revamp the priorities for roads and footpaths to support the redevelopment, recovery, and growth of the city encourage mode change, and improve safety. The performance measures need to make clear how well we are actually doing. Surveys of how people feel about something have limited value. What is actually being accomplished must be measured. For instance, cycle routes built, on schedule, where desired, and well connected. More people on bicycles, commuting, going to school, shopping, playing. More people walking, taking the bus. And then there's the dead ends. Central government has been big on commandments and not so great on funding, or even listening to what Christchurch actually needs. Whether it's their demands for expensive new development on the fringes, roads for monster trucks, or even anchor projects, the priorities are not the ones we need. High priority infrastructure is what the people of Christchurch actually need to get around on now and to transition to more affordable transport modes. Council will need to say no to central government on anchor projects, transport priorities, urban sprawl, cost-sharing agreements, and asset sales. No. Anything less locks ratepayers into substandard, outdated transport infrastructure and never-ending rates increases. Spokes fully supports Christchurch City Council working for the best interests of Christchurch. That means infrastructure which is sustainable, resilient, and affordable, which meets our community's needs first. Thank you for standing up for the future of Christchurch.
Thanks very much. Listen, I want to start with a question that's in relation to another submission that we're going to hear later, but because you're spokes, I wanted to hear your view on it. And that was a proposal not to reopen the section of the Summit Road currently closed to vehicular traffic, so open to cars and stuff. And there is a lot of support for this. I know because I discussed it with my husband this morning, and he's a keen cyclist on a Sunday, and they love the fact that this place is now safe for pedestrians and cyclists, and it doesn't have to compete with cars. So does Spokes have a view on that?
I think you would find general agreement that that's the preferred option. However, Spokes is a democratic organization, and just as you have to go to your council, I would have to speak to more people than just myself. But I think it is fair to say that, yes, we would support that.
That's great. Thank you. Phil?
Thank you very much, Dirk. Your suggestion about good cycle parking at bus stops, so that is an area that Spokes would potentially work with Council in the future?
We would be happy to work with Council on that and any other issues that we can be of help on.
Yeah, because one of the issues too is, you know, our buses, as you know, having enough space on them for bikes to actually be carried.
And that's a huge issue, because what we get as feedback from our members is they used the buses with their bicycles and then they stopped, because after you've had the fifth bus go by with two bicycles on the front, it's not very useful.
Yeah. Sometimes there's more bicycles than passengers, unfortunately, as well. So I don't know whether you've got any views about the nature of the buses that we are utilising in the city.
Well, in Perth, I think it is, they're using buses that have essentially luggage sections, which can take luggage or bicycles. I think they can take 12 bicycles at a time.
Right. But they're actually even smaller than the ones that we have in size, aren't they?
I don't know that.
Yeah. Okay, well, it's easy to look it up. Yanni?
One of the things that we have got on budget is about 160 million for the accessible transport plan. So there's a number of projects in there which aren't about doing earthquake repairs, but are about changing the central city. Just trying to get a feel, because you've talked to us about saying no to government and not doing some of the things that they've said that we have to do, and obviously accessible transport is one of those. Have you looked at those projects to work out which ones will really have the benefit in terms of the cycling network for the city versus you know, which ones that we could just say, no, actually, there's no point spending?
We have, and we have made submissions on the Accessible City Transport chapter. Without that in front of me, I'm not going to go over each specific one. We were not impressed with some of them because they did not make for easy contiguous cycling, created too many intersection conflicts, etc. I mean, we had real concerns with it. The Copenhagen lanes that exist for 2 blocks and then sort of fade out are not going to encourage those interested but concerned cyclists, which is the demographic we really need to target. You need to make it complete. They need to be able to go from their home to their destination without feeling like their life is in danger.
Paul, very quickly.
Quickly, just you'll be aware of the common sense plan that was put out just recently, alternative plan that talked about removing $30 million off the $156 million spend, which would actually incomplete some of the routes. What do you say about that?
It depends on how it's done. I mean, I think we all have to do what needs to be done to make it work for the city so that we don't have to have rates increases we can't afford and don't have to sell our assets. I think there may well be ways we can save money, and Spokes looks forward to working with City Council staff to try and identify those. As I said in this presentation, there may be alleyway connections. There may be removing on-street parking. I mean, when you try to remove on-street parking, I realize you're going to have a merchant saying, no, I'm going to go out of business. I think you need to make it clear to that merchant that having that in there means more people are going to be in cars. The city's going to need more money for roading infrastructure, so his rates are going to go up 20%, or he can join a parking district and his rates will go up maybe 30% effectively. And is it really worth it to him? And then you need to come back with the carrot, which is the NZTA study out of Auckland, which showed that most of the custom from people on bicycles was actually better than what they were getting from the on-street parking, and which was replicated in Wellington with a study by Opus.
And replicated it in New York as well. So thank you very much for your time.
I just wanted to clarify
thank you for your time.
Willing to reduce the budget, it's fine.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Could we now have the Canterbury Cycling Development Trust?